Are we passionate enough? Are we concerned enough to do something? Well, the very fact that all of you are here today speaks volumes that you actually do want to do something. And we're here because we want to do something more than just intellectually agree with what the Bible teaches. We want to put evangelism into practice, and that's great. And actually, I talked to a lady in the hallway, and she was saying, we have to encourage each other to do this. And that is exactly what we're doing here today, is we are encouraging each other in this quest, better yet, this calling to evangelize. Okay, for starters, who can tell me what is the world's most stolen book? You're right, it is. The Bible is the world's most stolen book. Why?
Somebody doesn't want somebody to have it, or somebody wants it. I don't know why it's stolen.
Someone might be stealing it so someone can't have it. Okay, that's the downside. Someone might be stealing it because they want to have it. Okay? Well, it is interesting. It's the world's most stolen book, so it is wanted. Okay, now I want you to think about this. Guess at what the 3 most searched words are on the internet. The 3 words that are most searched on the internet.
Love.
Yes, love. That's right, Jonathan. Not hope. Oh, shout it a little louder. I didn't hear it.
Death, maybe?
Not death.
Money?
You're getting closer.
Security. Rich development?
Okay. Someone said Christ, so right along those lines. God. Yes. So we have God. We have we've got God. We've got love. And love, I'm going to actually, let's put a slash in that one, because the actual word that is used, which may indicate the need for love, is actually sex. Okay? So God, sex, and the third one is work. God, sex, and work. The 3 most searched words on the internet. Okay. Why? Why these words? They all show needs. What needs do they show that we have? I mean, just about everybody's connected online, right? So if these are the 3 most searched words, it's telling something very significant about how people think.
So the third word is work?
I'm sorry, work. W-O-R-K. God, sex, work. Okay, why those words? What needs are being shown? They're looking for? Work. People are looking for work. What does work do for us?
Gives you a purpose.
Gives us a purpose. Yeah. It's a need to survive in many ways, right? You need work for a purpose, to have an income, to go on. So I would think that, okay, the search for work is probably the need to survive. And then sex is what was already mentioned. The need for love, the need for belonging. And then what about God? What are people looking for? Hope. What else? Meaning of life. Yes, okay. And maybe, who am I? Maybe it's a search for identity as well. So what I think here is the very fact that these 3 words are searched, we have to say, is evangelism relevant? Most indeed it is, okay? It's extremely relevant. People are using an electronic search engine to find answers to some of life's biggest questions, longings, and fears. I think that's incredibly pathetic. Here we have an answer, and we want them to search us. We need to search them, because we can give them the answers to these questions that they are longing for, instead of trying to find these answers from a computer screen in a very impersonal way. So the big question is, how do we do that? Well, I would like you to put up a slide. Yes, methods of evangelism. I was reading a lot about evangelism in preparation for this, and the more I read about different methods or styles of evangelism, seriously, the more confused I got. And so I have a list of various kinds of evangelism up here, but I think I came to the conclusion that there is no one perfect way, but I think taking bits of every form of evangelism will work. So the first one is up there is open air preaching, door-to-door preaching. The Jehovah's Witnesses use this still today. We have a gentleman that comes to our house regularly, and I think it's because we've actually befriended him. And actually, he used to always come and see me because Steve wasn't home, but now Steve is the one at home because he's on sabbatical still this semester. So now he's coming to see Steve on a regular basis, and he really had a great opportunity to share scriptures with him just 2 weeks ago. And I know he'll be back. And you know what? It's kind of a bit of a flip, actually. We're evangelizing the Jehovah's Witness when he comes to our door. It's really quite great. Okay, evangelizing through sermons. Well, you hear the gospel message in a sermon, and often there's an altar call. Lifestyle evangelism. That is when you demonstrate by your faith, by actions, and people are watching you. And then friendship evangelism, which is similar to lifestyle evangelism, except you make the point to deliberately become friends. And then personal evangelism, very similar to friendship evangelism, except you zero in more on a one-to-one relationship. And creative evangelism, it's using the fine arts, music, drama, film, art, using gospel tracts, teleevangelism, radio evangelism. Well, Jeff Lutz is here, and that's his ministry style with Harvesters for Christ radio station. Internet evangelism, well, we actually end up knowing that happens almost accidentally, right? There are websites, there are chat rooms, whether they're good or bad, there is internet evangelism. There's phone evangelism. I know years back there was a program called The Phones for You, and several churches had used that to invite people to come to church. And then there's prophetic evangelism, and that's one who has the gift of prophecy and prophesies over someone to prompt them to seek God. Well, I actually have an amusing story about this. There was a young man that felt he had the gift of prophecy, and he wanted to try to exercise it and learn it. So he went to Steve in his office one day and explained this. So he asked, could I please prophesy over you? And so Steve said, okay. Anyway, he told him, there will be another woman, and your wife will be okay with it. So anyway, later in the day, our daughter was a student at Crandall at the time, and she went into Steve's office, and he said, you know what, this guy came and he prophesied over me, and he said that I was going to have another woman and that Mom would be okay with that. And she said, that guy's no prophet. Mom would never be okay with that. So that one, be careful. That could go so wrong. All right. And then storytelling evangelism, which is very popular now. You hear a lot about it, and it's where you share your experiences about what God has done for you. You share your story. Okay, this again is just a sampling of different methods of evangelism. I'm sure you are thinking of a few more, but again, I think that we need to understand ourselves, understand your own personality, know what your giftings are, know what your knowledge base is, and find something that works for you. Now, I want to share some quotes on evangelism with you. And the first quote is this one. I found this on our church convention website, and it was posted on October 27th. And it reads, 82% of unchurched people would likely attend church if invited, but only 2% of church people ever offer invitations. And that's by Thomas Rayner, The Unchurched Next Door. Now, we could reinterpret those figures. That could be said that 8 out of every 10 will come if they are invited. Reactions to that quote?
That's not been my experience that high.
Okay, all right. Okay, you think it's less now? Okay.
Even if it's half of that, it's still not doing
Okay, yes. And you know what? I think that's probably more the point. Whether this figure is inflated or not, maybe the 2% is fairly accurate about inviting people to church. So people will come to church sometimes if you invite them. If you don't invite them, they won't come. It's that simple. So I'm going to read you an excerpt from that book. Mark M. is one of my favorite formerly unchurched persons. The lifelong Floridian rarely attended church the first 36 years of his life. Through persistent and loving invitations to church by his fellow employee, Chad, Mark finally agreed to go to church with him. "I'm not sure what I expected," Mark said enthusiastically. "I went with Chad the next 2 Sundays, and I started going on my own." Mark would become a Christian in a little over a year. Mark was a second-generation unchurched person. "My parents never went to church," Mark said. "I never thought of attending. It was never on my radar." We asked Mark why he eventually went to church. "Because Chad invited me," he responded bluntly. "Any other reasons?" we asked. "No, just because I was invited." "Had anyone ever invited you to church before?" "Nope, no one in my life." So, regardless of that 82%, some people will come to church if they are invited. So I think that tells us, invite people to church. See what happens. Remember what I said? Leave the outcome to God. You do your part. You're responsible. You're not responsible for the final outcome. God is. All right. The next quote I want to read is about our youth today. Now, I would like to suggest that is not simply about youth. But today's young adults value authenticity. I think we all do. They witnessed a generation of baby boomer Christians who required the appearance of excellence in every part of church life. Okay, what do you think about that quote? It's not realistic?
It's unrealistic the appearance of excellence.
Oh, okay.
Years ago when we went to church, it was you dressed in your best of everything and you went in and sat, and not a lot of social activity, if I'm remembering correctly now.
Okay.
It's much more relaxed, and people wear jeans, and there's a lot of chatting, socializing.
Yes. Okay.
There's a lot of labels and you just do that, don't do this, which turns some people off.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I think, what good is the glitzy message or the glitzy messenger if you don't trust it or you don't trust them? I think we're looking for something authentic, something real, not necessarily something that is so fashionable and flashy. And if you find out behind it, it may not be true. We hear this excuse that people say about not going to church. Oh, it's full of hypocrites. So what do they want? They want authentic, real people. And I think part of having authentic, real people, too, is it's okay that we're not perfect. It's okay for people to know that. Because people want to know, oh, guess what? I can fail, but I can continue and go on. There's forgiveness with Christ. And I think that is authentic, and that authenticity is needed. I want to tell you actually an interesting story which reflects this need for authenticity. There was a young man who attended a secular university, and he did what a lot of first-year university students did away from home for the first time. He played video games and partied, and he flunked out. Well, this young man also had a praying grandmother. And the following year, this young man attended Crandall University. Well, he didn't know too much about this faith stuff, but he was there, and he made this pact, fleece, experiment, whatever you want to call it, with himself and God. He decided he was going to choose 3 people and watch them over the course of a year. One was a friend, a young man. One was a professor, and the other was a young woman. And he did this because he wanted to watch their lives. He wanted to see if their faith was real, if their faith was authentic. At the end of this year, he concluded that all 3 persons had a real faith and that their faith made a difference in the way they lived and the way they lived with others. He became a believer. Yeah, so it's a great story. So he was looking for authenticity. And I just think that's an interesting way in which he came to faith. But a great story. Okay, Proverbs 22:1 says, "Choose a good reputation over great riches, for being in high esteem is better than silver or gold." Those 3 people that